everyone, this is CY once again. This is actually the second back-to-back coffee roasting I'm doing for the Singapore Coffee Association. As in our first video, right, we're actually doing some sampling roasting for them. And today, the second video, we're going to roast the Lot 27, which is actually the coffee bean from Indonesia. The company that brought in is actually CV Putera, Niaga, Indonesia. The farm is actually from Kelompok, Tani Kandi Moyo, Desa Sekamojo, Kek Purwasari, Kep Pasuruan. I hope I got the pronunciation correct. And the origin is actually from Java, Arjuno, Indonesia. The crop year is 2020. The processing method is semi-wash, so it's not a fully washed one as compared to our first one, the coffee beans from Myanmar, which is actually the fully washed coffee beans. Again, this is a small scale plantation, right, of about 12 tons per year, I suppose, harvest, and the elevation is between 1002 to 1004 above sea level. So this one is relatively lower in altitude. So later on when we do the roast, we will actually lower the charge temperature to about 180. Right? Remember in our previous one, the elevation is about 1006, so our charge temperature will tend to be higher. This is something that I have figured out. For beans with higher altitude, right, we tend to roast at slightly higher charge temperature. For myself, using the M10, normally I will charge beans with lower altitude, maybe around 1002 to 1004 at 180 degrees Celsius. This is just my personal preference. For beans that's between 1004 to 1006, I'll charge at about 185 degrees Celsius. Above 1006 to 2000, I'll charge 190 degrees Celsius. Right? Why is that so? Because for beans that is grown in higher altitude, the bean tends to be higher density, which means that it's harder for the heat to get into the bean. So you want to charge at a high temperature so that the heat can get into the core of the coffee bean as quickly as possible, so that you will not risk actually charring the external of the bean and the internal of the bean is still green. You don't want that to happen. So let's move on to the roast. This is CUI. Thanks for joining me today. Let's roast it. Let me change the charge temperature first. As you can see on the M10 Sniper, everything can be controlled by this touch screen panel. Right now I'm going to adjust the charge temperature to 180, and we'll take a little while for the temperature to get stable. There's one way to allow the temperature to drop, is actually to open the front panel and open the top hatch, and that will allow you to drop the temperature faster. And you want it to drop first, then you close it, then the temperature will rise up to about 180 degrees Celsius. So now you can see the temperature is dropping. If it still doesn't drop, another way is actually to discharge the air through exhaust. That will suck out all the hot air that's inside the roaster. Okay, I can see the bean temperature has already dropped down. So let's wait for a while. Right, I can see the air temperature is dropping now to about 180, 181, 180, 179. So now I can close the door, close the catch, and allow the temperature to rise back to 180 degrees Celsius. So now what I'm seeing here is both my air temperature and bean temperature are the same. And that's what I'm trying to achieve. Right, it's pretty nice. My bean temperature has already reached 180. So now both are at 180. So now I can start to prepare my beans. I want to do a measuring to check what is the mass of the bean. I will still be roasting about 300 grams, but let's see how much we have in this bag of coffee beans here, right? Okay, maybe I'll show you the green beans. This is actually the green beans. The bean size is, I think, smaller. Yeah, it is not as big as the rest. Yeah, it's actually pretty small. Maybe I take some out of my hand and show you. Alright, this is actually a very small bean size. Okay, let's measure 300 grams. Okay, so that's about 300 grams. Okay, so let's check the temperature. The temperature is very good. It's about 180 degrees Celsius. Both my air temperature and my bean temperature are around the same. Basically, there are two thermometer probe inside the M10. One is a bit higher, one is lower. So the lower one is actually measuring the bean temperature. The upper one is actually measuring the exhaust temperature, right? Let's reset the curve. You can see now, I'm not too sure whether you can see so far away, but I can read to you the air temperature is 180, 181, that's pretty good. I'm going to reset the curve, and remember, again, I'm going to soak it for 1 minute. So let's off the heat, start the timer, off the heat, and then I'm going to drop the beans. So now we'll let the beans soak for about 1 minute. I can see the turning point has already reached. Now we are at 50 seconds of soaking. Okay, so now I'm going to increase the heat to about 30%. Right, at this stage, all the beans are very green. Right, so maybe I'll just show it to you. This is still the green stage. Because the bean is not as dense as compared to the one with high altitude, which means to say that the heat will get in easier. Right, we have just passed the 2-minute mark, and we are at 120 degrees Celsius of the bean temperature. Something good about the M10 Sniper is the temperature of the exhaust temperature is actually very steady. It always maintains at around 180 degrees Celsius, plus minus 2 degrees Celsius. So sometimes you'll go up to slightly higher, maybe 181, and you will stop heating and you will drop. You will drop about 178, and then the heater will kickstart again, and you will rise, right? We are now at 131 degrees Celsius. I have to find a holder, right, which can actually hold my monitor here, right, so that I don't have to keep holding on to it. We have just passed the 3-minute mark, and the bean temperature now is 136. Let's check the color. It is starting to turn yellow. let me switch on the light. It'll be easier for you to see. The carving score for this is about 80.25, so it's actually not. It's still above 80, which is still considered as specialty grade. But as compared to the rest, which is about 85, 86, this is slightly on the lower side. So we are now hitting about 150 degrees Celsius. It's 4 minutes. That's what we have targeted at first. We target to reach about 150 degrees Celsius in about 4 minutes. So now we should be expecting all the green beans to turn yellow now. Right, you can see all the colors is now yellow. Okay, let's just grab another sample. Right, you can see it's starting to turn slightly light brown in color. This is when the coffee starts to develop its taste, its taste profile. So this is actually one of the most crucial periods. Our ROR is at 5, which is pretty good, which means to say that every 1 minute it increases by 10 degrees Celsius. We have just passed the 5-minute mark. You can see that in this second batch of roasting, I'm not controlling the fan as compared to before, because the batch before this, the temperature was actually increasing too fast. So I have to introduce exhaust air. I have to pull out the hot heat inside the drum so that the heat doesn't rise up too fast. But for this batch, the rising of heat is actually very, very manageable. So I will not be switching on the exhaust fan. We are now passing 6 minutes. I think this is going to be a very good roast. Let's check the condition of the roast. You can see that it is turning slightly darker brown. We have just hit 180 degrees Celsius on the bean temperature. So we should be hearing, let me check the color. Right, we should be hearing the first crack pretty soon. Oh, yep, the first crack started, and it started at about 7 minutes and 10 seconds. So now I will allow it to develop for 1 minute. I will probably drop the beans at about 195 degrees Celsius. So for this batch, I'll drop the beans at about 8 minutes and 10 seconds. You see the color? It's turning darker brown. Okay, so just nice, I'm going to drop the beans through the air. Again, a very even roast. So this is about medium. Okay, so the cooling has been done. So I'm going to switch off the exhaust, and I'm going to return the heat to 100%, close the cover, and then reset the curve, reset the time. Right. So the second batch has been done. Right. This is actually lot 27 from Indonesia. You can see that towards the usually I'll switch on the fan after the first crack. But for this batch, I didn't switch off the exhaust fan, which means that the bean is going to be slightly smoky, which means it may have a smoky kind of taste profile, right, when you make an espresso. And if I want a cleaner cup, for example, if I use it for filter coffee, then maybe I will not want the smoky taste, and I want higher clarity. So I will use the exhaust fan to pull out the smoke, so that the bean will have higher clarity in that way. So let's take out the beans and let it cool somewhere. So we will be doing another batch. So that's a batch number 3. So in batch number 3, we're going to roast. Let me see what we have. I want to clear all the smaller batches. Just now was lot 27, so the next batch we're going to roast the lot 29, right? Lot 29. And now we're going to showcase that the M10 Pro is actually capable of back-to-back roasting. So now we're going to go batch number 3. This is CY once again. Thank you for joining me. And yes, the roasting video is going to be about 20 minutes long, because from the preparation and this I'm trying to give you a background of the coffee beans, the plantation, the elevations, the farm size and things like that before you start roasting. So it's going to take a bit of time. So thank you for joining me. Remember to subscribe and like my videos. I'll see you very soon in the next one. Stay safe. Ciao.